Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we will be discussing current events, and since discussing it will get me shadow banned on YouTube, this virus that I'm about to talk about will here on be referred to as the demonetization virus. And right here I have Dr. Cameron Sidell, which is a really credible doctor in New York. Cameron Kyle-Sidell, that's his name. He's a really credible doctor in New York. He's an ER doctor. He's a real doctor, and you can search his name online, and you will be able to see his records. He is an incredible knowledgeable and credible guy. And let's listen to what he has to say about the demonetization virus, and we can use our brain, our judgment, to determine whether or not he is telling the truth. And here's what he has to say from the front lines.
This is Dr. Cameron Kyle-Sidell, ER and critical care doctor from New York City. 9 days ago, I opened an intensive care unit to care for the sickest COVID-positive patients in this city. In these 9 days, I have seen things I have never seen before. In treating these patients, I have witnessed medical phenomenon that just don't make sense in the context of treating a disease that is supposed to be a viral pneumonia. 9 days ago, I presumed I was opening an intensive care unit to treat patients with a virus causing a pneumonia that was ravaging lungs across the world, starting out as something mild, a cough, a sore throat, and progressively increasing in severity until ultimately ending in something called acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. This is the paradigm that every hospital in the country is working under. This is the disease, ARDS, that every hospital is preparing to treat. And this is the disease, ARDS, for which in the next 2 to 6 weeks, 100,000 Americans might be put on a ventilator. And yet, everything I've seen in the last 9 days, all the things that just don't make sense, the patients I'm seeing in front of me, the lungs I'm trying to improve, have led me to believe that COVID-19 is not this disease, and that we are operating under a medical paradigm that is untrue. In short, I believe we are treating the wrong disease, and I fear that this misguided treatment will lead to a tremendous amount of harm to a great number of people in a very short time. As New York City appears to be about 10 days ahead of the country, I feel compelled to get this information out. COVID-19 lung disease, as far as I can see, is not a pneumonia and should not be treated as one. Rather, it appears as some kind of viral induced disease, most resembling high altitude sickness. It is as if tens of thousands of my fellow New Yorkers are on a plane at 30,000 feet and the cabin pressure is slowly being let out. These patients are slowly being starved of oxygen. I have seen patients dependent on.
Okay, so I want to make a pause, and because Dr. Seidel made a really important point here. So, this demonetization virus, it is not pneumonia. Pneumonia is when your lungs get inflamed, filled with fluids, and ultimately collapses. You cannot breathe normally when you have pneumonia. However, what he is saying is that patients who have the demonetization virus can breathe normally under their circumstances, which means that if you ask the patients who have the demonetization virus to blow air into a balloon, they would be able to fill it up. But the real sinister, tricky part is that although they can breathe in air, they cannot they cannot transfer the oxygen in the air into their bloodstream. And that is what's really killing patients who have the demonetization virus. So imagine like this. You're able to breathe regularly, but you're breathing in recycled air over and over and over again until there's no more oxygen left. That's what the demonetization virus patients are facing. It's not that they cannot breathe, it's that they cannot get oxygen from the air. And that is the scariest part of this all. I really want you all to understand that.
Oxygen, take off their oxygen, and quickly progress through a state of anxiety and emotional distress, and eventually get blue in the face. And while they look like patients absolutely on the brink of death, they do not look like patients dying of pneumonia. I have never been a mountain climber, and I do not know the conditions at base camp below the highest peaks in the world. But I suspect that the patients I'm seeing in front of me look most like as if a person was dropped off on the top of Mount Everest without time to acclimate. I don't know the final answer of this disease, but I'm quite sure that a ventilator is not it. That is not to say that we don't need ventilators. We absolutely need them. They are the only way at this time that we're able to give a little more oxygen to patients who need it. But when we treat people with ARDS, we typically use ventilators to treat what's called respiratory failure. That is, we use the ventilator to do the work that the patient's muscles can no longer do because they're too tired to do it. These patients' muscles work fine. I fear that if we are using a false paradigm to treat a new disease, that the method that we program the ventilator, one based on a notion of respiratory failure as opposed to oxygen failure, that this method, and there are a great many number of methods we can use with the ventilator, but this method being widely adopted at this very moment in every hospital in the country, which aims to increase pressure on the lungs in order to open them up, is actually doing more harm than good. And that the pressure we are providing to lungs, we may be providing to lungs that cannot stand it, that cannot take it, and that the ARDS that we are seeing, that the whole world is seeing, may be nothing more than lung injury caused by the ventilator.
This, this right here is very sinister. So, what he's saying is, imagine you have a normal lung. You can breathe normally, but the ventilators pressures your lung and cause it to collapse. Thus, you have symptoms that resembles pneumonia, but actually not caused by the demonetization virus, but rather it is caused by the ventilators. If what Dr. Seidel saying here is true, which I believe it is, then this is murder. This is mass murder committed by the CDC, the WHO, and the mainstream media. They're spreading lies that misguide doctors and nurses, and it's killing Americans. And this is dangerous. This is very dangerous, and it's very sinister. And we need to get Dr. Seidel's video across the internet. We need to let the mass Americans, the everyday American, know the truth. And I'll continue the video from now on.
Now, I don't know the final answer to this disease. I do sense that we will have to use ventilators. We will have to use a great many number of ventilators, and we need a great many number of ventilators. But I sense that we can use them in a much safer way, in a much safer method. That safer method challenges long-held dogmatic beliefs within the medical community and among lung specialists, which will not be easy to overcome. But I really believe that they must be overcome. There are hundreds of thousands of lungs in this country at risk, and the time to overcome them is now. I'm confident that if those of us that work bedside with these patients, those of us who are witnessing the things that we have never seen before, despite the many years we have worked and the thousands of patients and diseases we have seen, if we can effectively communicate this to all those that are so important but who are not bedside, the researchers, the administrators, those who procure our resources and make our protocols, the politicians, our own government, if we are able to convince them that this is a disease that is different than anything we have ever seen, I am confident that an answer can be found, that effective treatment can be discovered, and that a plan to disseminate that treatment can be rapidly deployed, and that tens of thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of lives and lungs will be protected. The time for this is now. We are staring into a future in which a great many of our fellow Americans are going to suffer, not to mention people all around the world. For those who will not suffer directly from this disease, from the terrible human cost of this disease, for those who will not lose a family member or a friend, and there will be a great many number of people who will lose those close to them. But for those who don't, they are still going to suffer from the great economic cost of COVID-19. We are
Yes, the doctor is 100% right here. The demonetization virus is not the only dangerous thing right now that we're facing. Even if we don't, you and I don't get the demonetization virus, we are still going to feel and be impacted by the economic impact of the demonetization virus. Also, there are other more dangerous stuff going on in the background, such, and I will make videos talking about the fallout and the lasting impact of the demonetization virus later on. But Dr. Seidel, is 100% on point with everything he have said so far. And if you go into the comment section of this video, you will see that other doctors and nurses and people with PhDs all agreeing with him.
we are all involved in this future. So I urge you, for those of us, if you are out there, for those who work bedside, I urge you to speak up. We can change this. I thank you all for listening. Please spread the message and stay safe.
And if you liked this video, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and I will make another video about the impact of this demonetization virus, because this is going to be a series of videos. Everyone, please stay safe, wear masks, and I'll see you until next time.